Pallbearers carry the coffin inside the palace, Princess Anne curtsying to her mother as the Queen's final journey reaches its first stop.
The Queen is home.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And we're now into day 4 of rolling royal coverage, with the latest bulletins bringing us the journey of the Queen's funeral cortege, which ran live on Sky last night for hours. It was, of course, on Friday morning that we woke to news the world had long expected, but still came as a shock, with veteran BBC broadcaster Hugh Edwards doing the honours.
This is BBC News from London. Buckingham Palace has announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Edward's poise, said author David Baddiel, was a masterclass in extended sombreness. It's claimed he'd been rehearsing and practising in front of the mirror for months. And following the BBC's announcement, the rest of the world quickly followed suit.
C'est une page de l'histoire du Royaume-Uni, du Commonwealth et du monde qui se tourne ce soir. La reine Elisabeth II est morte à l'âge de 96 ans.
Königin Elisabeth II ist tot.
Stay with us. We have got some breaking news. Sandra?
Queen Elizabeth II has died at the age of 96.
Some found the news hard to get used to, like ITV's Chris Shipp, as he read a statement from the new king.
A statement from His Majesty the Queen, a statement from His Majesty the King. You can see that even those of us who have followed this for a long time can still make those mistakes. His Majesty the Queen.
The King.
His Majesty the King.
The truth is that Britain had been preparing and even rehearsing for this moment for decades, with strict protocols for what would happen in the hours, days and weeks after the Queen's death.
In fact, this has all been planned, of course, well ahead. We know that for years now, the British government has been planning what's known as Operation London Bridge. We're going to see a very well-oiled machine kicking. It's already kicked in.
And the same could be said for the global media, with rolling royal coverage triggered on Thursday night on 7 by news that the Queen was, quote, under medical supervision and clearly unlikely to survive.
The fact is she's not very well. The doctors are concerned for her. Her family is surrounding her. She's 96. I think that probably says it all.
As thousands gathered at Buckingham Palace, Britain's newspapers captured the heartfelt grief of the nation, with almost all the red tops going to black, with a 31-page tribute in the Daily Express and 35 pages in the Mirror, while The Sun ran a 36-page tribute, swapping its red banner for regal purple. But trumping them all was the Daily Mail, publishing 82 pages under the headline,
Our hearts are broken.
And here in Australia, the Daily Mail homepage was awash with dozens and dozens of stories honouring Her Majesty, some of which were, frankly, ridiculous.
Astonishing moment, a cloud resembling Queen Elizabeth floats over English town just hours after she died.
And even more absurd was this headline.
Reunited in heaven. Inside Shane Warne's sweet friendship with the Queen as they both die within months of each other.
And the ABC was not immune.
Perth pays touching corgi tribute to the Queen.
On TV too, there was a tidal wave of coverage on the ABC and commercial channels that swept normal programming aside. As the ABC's Michael Rowland explained in The Guardian,
it is absolutely the biggest story I'll cover live. And like every other broadcasting outfit, we have been doing rehearsal after rehearsal over the years and mock presentations on the Queen's death. And finally, everything kicked into gear.
That included a strict black-only dress code for presenters and guests to mark the solemnity of the occasion and the significance of history being made.
The longest reign of any monarch, the greatest figure in modern British history. She saw them all. 13 US presidents, 16 Australian prime ministers, 15 UK PMs.
By early Friday morning, all the networks, bar SBS, had switched to royal-only coverage, but rolled on into the night, with a gaggle of royal experts paid handsomely to fill the time. And if you were into live coverage of 96 gun salutes, there was lots to like.
We're going to have one ringing out through Hyde Park.
And on 7, Sky and the ABC, the tsunami of cloying coverage continued into the weekend, along with rehashed documentaries and countless repeats of the Queen with James Bond, or having tea with Paddington, and any unscripted live moments were met with great excitement from the overworked commentators.
He's stopping. Camilla is getting out of the car right now.
Out.
The King is getting out of the vehicle right now. They're going to do a walkabout.
And if ABC viewers were expecting other news on Saturday's 7 p.m. bulletin, like Russian defeats in Ukraine or devastating new floods in Pakistan, they were sorely mistaken, with the entire bulletin giving way to live coverage of the proclamation of King Charles III. Followed on Sunday's bulletin by another 24 minutes of royal stories. And some viewers were rightly livid.
This is getting silly now. Not even a regular news bulletin, nothing on all of your broadcast channels. Utterly absurd and archaic.
Couldn't you have at least restricted this banality to your 24 News channel?
Are we to conclude that nothing else of importance was happening in the world?
Over the weekend, our new king was on all the big city front pages as the focus switched from one monarch to the next. While Brisbane's Courier-Mail and the other News Corp tabloids helpfully listed the new king's top jobs, urging him to
advocate for environmental causes.
Except, bizarrely, in Sydney's Daily Telegraph.
Stop publicly advocating for environmental causes.
By then, Nat and Koshi were in London, hosting Weekend Sunrise from Buckingham Palace. No doubt relieved they had a shock new development to talk about.
And could we have just witnessed another landmark moment late this afternoon? Take a look at this. Prince William, Catherine, Prince Harry and Meghan together, greeting crowds outside Windsor Castle, talking to each other. That has come as a surprise to everyone. Yeah, whoa, all right, especially the well-wishers who gathered there.
The Sky's Andrew Clennell observed midday on Sunday.
Well, the extent of the media coverage on every channel, just extraordinary.
And on TV, radio and online, anyone who'd ever met or seen the Queen was asked to share their stories, which, after her 80 years in public life, were in inexhaustible supply.
I shook her hand. And it was just magnificent. I still remember it to the day I leave this earth.
But in the flood, there were some gems, like the story from Royal Protection Officer Richard Griffin of American hikers on a walk near Balmoral who didn't recognise the Queen. First told during the Royal Jubilee, now viewed on Twitter more than 20 million times.
And then sure enough, he said to Her Majesty, "And where do you live?" And she said, "Well, I live in London, but I've got a holiday home just the other side of the hills." And he said, "Well, how often have you been coming up here?" "Oh," she said, "I've been coming up here ever since I was a little girl, so over 80 years. And you could see the clogs thinking. He said, "Well, if you've been coming up here for 80 years, you must have met the Queen." And as quick as a flash says, "Well, I haven't. The dick here meets her regularly." So the guy said to me, "Oh, you've met the Queen. What's she like?" And because I was with her a long time and I knew I could pull a leg, I said, "Oh, she can be very cantankerous at times, but she's got a lovely sense of humour." Anyway, the next thing I knew, this guy comes round, put his arm around my shoulder, and before I could see what was happening, he gets his camera, gives it to the Queen, and says, "Can you take a picture of the two of us?" Anyway, we swapped places, and I took a picture of them with the Queen, and we never let on, and we waved goodbye, and then Her Majesty said to me, "I'd love to be a fly on the wall when he shows those photographs to the friends in America, and hopefully someone tells him who I am."
It's pretty clear the Queen was much loved, even by many Republicans. But did the Australian media really need to go so crazy with the coverage and stick at it so long? And it's not over yet. With Britain only 4 days into its 12 days of official mourning and a state funeral still to come, to be broadcast live on the ABC, all the networks now have big teams in London to make sure that not a moment is missed. But now, to other news, and a story about a 5-year-old murder that's causing Brisbane's Courier-Mail all sorts of problems.
Cop-killing gunman's horrific list of crimes.
That list, the paper told us last week, involved a
sordid history of torture, rape, guns and bashing allegations.
In a
brutal criminal history spanning more than 20 years.
So, who was this cop killer? His name was Ricky Madison, who ambushed Queensland Police while on the run in 2017 and shot dead Senior Constable Brett Fort.
Automatic gunfire. Urgent assistance as a police vehicle is rolled.
The following day, after a 20-hour siege, Madison was himself killed by police. The Sunday Mail story, 8 days ago, listed his crimes and had a photo of the man, with even more pictures of him in an online story syndicated across News Corp mastheads and pushed out across social media. So, what's the problem? Well, that's not Ricky Madison. It's his friend, Shane Wazinski, a security guard from the Gold Coast who's pictured here on the left with Madison. As Shane said on Facebook,
Well, worse fears came true on this Father's Day. My pic is plastered all over page 11 of the Sunday Mail with the heading and a picture of me instead of my mate Ricky Madison, who was killed in a shootout after killing a cop.
Not good. And the Courier-Mail should have known he was the wrong man because it's been reporting on the case for 5 years and has a gallery of images of the real Ricky Madison. Like this one, and this one, and this one. Shane was alerted to the Courier-Mail's mistake by police friends early Saturday night when the story was published online. But it took until mid-Sunday morning for his photos to be removed, which meant it was too late to take them out of the print edition. Next day, the paper did its best to make amends with this notice on page 3 that is also up online.
Apology. An article entitled "Cop Killing Gunman's Horrific List of Crimes," published on page 11 of the Sunday Mail, incorrectly included a photograph of a man who was not the subject of the article. The Sunday Mail sincerely apologises to the man who was pictured.
So, is Shane happy with that? Well, no. Telling MediaWatch he wants a front-page apology and has engaged a lawyer to pursue damages. And his chances are good, according to defamation expert Michael Douglas, who points to this recent case of mistaken identity in the Cleo abduction case last year. That ended with a confidential settlement, which is the likely outcome for Shane Wazinski. And why, you might ask, was the Courier-Mail even running a story about the 5-year-old murder, given the paper's previous and extensive coverage? Well, Ricky's mother, Narelle Madison, had briefly spoken to Seven a week earlier to express her grief and defend her son.
You can only push some people to breaking point. And once they break, it's not their fault.
The Courier-Mail then packaged that up 7 days later and managed to get it horribly and possibly expensively wrong. We've said it before, we'll say it again. When you're publishing a picture of a person responsible for a crime, especially one as serious as this, make sure you have the right person. And now to the Northern Territory and the inquest into the death of Kumanjayi Walker, who was shot dead by police in Yuendumu in 2019.
A jury found Zachary Rolfe not guilty in less than a day.
In March, police officer Zachary Rolfe was acquitted of all charges over the fatal shooting of 19-year-old Kumanjayi Walker. While the verdict closed one chapter, many questions remained for the Walpurgis man's family.
But this is not the end of his story. And this is not the end of our fight.
The inquest into Kumanjayi Walker's death is expected to last 3 months and is certain to throw up strong criticism of NT Police. And the coroner is already being asked to take a tough line with the media.
NT Police lawyer turns on local news websites' appalling coverage of Kumanjayi Walker inquest.
That, quote, appalling coverage was in the NT Independent, which has been running a special investigation into the shooting, based on a secret police report the website has obtained. The NT Independent claims it makes a number of serious allegations about police failures, including that
Mr Walker would most likely still be alive had immediate response team members followed proper training and policies in Yuendumu that night.
And also that
NT police officers in Yuendumu lied to the family of Kumanjayi Walker about his condition the night he was fatally shot and refused to provide mouth-to-mouth resuscitation as he lay dying.
And those are just a couple of the charges. The Independent says they're all contained in a draft report for the coroner prepared by Superintendent Scott Pollock, one of the NT's top policemen, who was allegedly taken off the job because his superiors didn't like his conclusions. But here is the problem. The drafts are part of the inquest brief, which is subject to non-publication orders going back to April. That
there be no disclosure or other publication of the contents of the brief of evidence.
And the latest version of that order on the website, and another in August, specifically identifies the Pollock drafts. Ian Freckleton KC, who is acting for the police, alerted the coroner to the articles on the opening day, saying he was not at that stage asking for action. But the NT Independent then doubled down with an editorial saying it would not be intimidated and repeated the allegations. Cue an angry police council to label it sensationalist, inaccurate, gutter reporting and ask the coroner to find the publisher in contempt.
This time it is our submission that your non-publication orders have been breached. This time we do urge Your Honour to take action about it.
So, what is likely to happen? We understand the matter has been passed to the NT Solicitor General for legal advice, and action could follow unless the so-called secret report, which was provided to the defence in Constable Rolfe's criminal trial, is deemed to have already been in the public domain. So why does it matter? And why might the Independent face fines or jail? Well, the allegations are pretty inflammatory, and counsel assisting the coroner has already said that one of them is patently false. And she argues it's the court's job to decide whether they are true or not. Meanwhile, the NT Independent has cranked it up again with an even angrier editorial on Friday, revealing more allegations from the report and declaring,
"We told you when we started this that those in positions of power were not going to be happy with our reporting, and we expected them to lash out when held accountable to the public for their actions."
The latest editorial calls the attack on the website a rant and accuses the NT Police Commissioner of using bully boy tactics. So the war is on. Meanwhile, the coroner is caught in the crossfire. In her opening remarks this week, counsel assisting Peggy Dwyer made a plea for the media to cool it.
In the aftermath of Kumanjayi's death and the trial of Constable Rolfe, media reports have often seemed polarised, as if there are two sides to a debate, a right side and a wrong side. The good guys and the bad guys. That is the opposite of the way this court approaches an inquest.
The court said Dwyer will not be looking for someone to blame, it'll be trying to stop it happening again. Or, as she put it,
every interested party in court wants to do whatever possible to ensure there is no other shooting death of a community member by the Northern Territory Police.
The NT Independent told us it didn't know about the non-publication orders until after its stories were published. It also says the source document for its stories is not specifically listed in the order. However, ignorance is no defence, and several drafts of the Pollock report certainly are on the list. We'll let you know what happens. But breaching a non-publication order in the NT is punishable by up to 2 years in jail. Meanwhile, the NT Independent told us,
"We have a responsibility as journalists to report information in the public interest, including information that those in positions of power do not want released. And this case is very much in the public interest."
The Independent also told us that the NT public would not even know about the secret police report and alleged police attempts to suppress it had it not been for their reporting. You can read their full statement on our website. And that's all from us for tonight. There's more on our website where you can stream or download the programme. And don't forget Media Bites every Thursday. But for now, goodbye.